Hello, and welcome all to our last bootcamp of the year. This week's topic is on rolling out effective strategies. We are going to give it a minute or two for you to tune in. We'll get started, but feel free to say hello in the chat and tell us where you are calling in from. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Nice, from all over the world.
Very nice. Okay, we'll give it another minute here and then we'll get going. Good evening to those also in Europe. Lots of people from the US joining in.
All right, I see Canada. Hello.
Okay, we'll give it another minute here. Welcome to those who've just joined. All right, I will get sharing my screen and get us ready. All right, let's get going. I think we have most people here. So as I mentioned, welcome to our last bootcamp of the year. Our topic is on rolling out effective strategies. My name is Laura, strategy execution at Cascade. I'm also joined by Miriam. Miriam, do you want to say hello and get us kicked off?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Hello, my name is Miriam, and I'm here as Strategy Execution Director at Cascade. And why don't we get started with a question? So, how confident are you that your strategy will be rolled out effectively in 2024? There should be a little poll on the side, or here we go, where you can put in your answers, and we want to see what you have to say. Do we already have a couple answers rolling in? Okay. Well, I see that you are probably somewhat confident, but here is the thing. Most of the time, planning is the easy part, which I guess is why you are here. We did some research last year and we found that actually 90% of strategies fail to come to fruition. So you're probably wondering why. When I was working in corporate, I would hear things in the headquarter like, oh, the regions, they're doing their own thing. They don't really execute our strategy. And then when I was working in the region, I would hear something like, oh, we didn't get a good enough plan. So maybe that sounds familiar to some of you. I want to say ultimately, they're probably both right, because strategy doesn't stop at presenting it to your teams or your regions. Strategy really only succeeds if it's truly lived day to day in your organization. So leaders often fall into that trap of thinking of rolling out strategy, presenting it and sharing it like that's done. But they should really be thinking about collaborating and exposing everyone to the strategy. So now, related to this, we also found that there is a 35% gap between executives and team members in the knowledge of the strategy. And this typically comes down to two main reasons. First, there is a lack of communication. And second, the strategy is too complicated. So you might have heard of a saying that you should be able to explain your strategy on a napkin. So it needs to be easy to understand, comprehensive enough, but also accessible. And lastly, we found that 47% of team members have no clue how strategy is tracked. Because quite frankly, oftentimes it is either tracked in isolation or sometimes even not at all. So one critical thing to understand is really that strategy is being executed by each individual, not by a group of people, but by every team member. So we found that if you don't share your strategy with your people, they will operate on their own assumptions and they will start making their own initiatives, and without context, they start rowing in different directions. And quite frankly, resources go to waste. And you might have seen some of that happening in the past in your own organization. So when it comes to a lack of strategic clarity, it kind of starts with the leader. But now let's go one level deeper here. And let's look at a couple of examples of what this might look like in reality. So you can see here on the left side, there's usually a really big expectation how strategy is going to change the course of the business. And then on the right side, you'll see how team members truly feel about it after strategy is being rolled out. So there is a disconnect. And in fact, actually, we found in Gallup's latest research that only 2 out of 10 team members are really engaged at work. And that is something that is often being overseen, especially when companies fail to turn their strategic vision into reality because they overlook this vital cornerstone of success. And that's where, out of all of our experience, it's important to think about this two-way street here. It's a top-down approach of rolling out that strategy, but it's also bottom-up and embracing that collaboration with the teams, exposing everybody to the strategy. That will really help to engage everyone and ultimately build high-performing teams. So you can plan your innovation in the boardroom, but ultimately it needs to happen on the ground. So now let's flip the script and let's see how we roll out effective strategies. So most of the time, or you might probably see some of these symptoms here, right? You can hear something like, oh, there's too much work, or there's a disconnect with teammates, things don't get properly done, or they take too much time. People don't really know what to work on or what to focus on. So what is the problem that we see? The problem is chaos, operating in silos, finger pointing, slow decision making, and a lack of transparency. But we're here to find solutions. So where do we want to go to? The goal is you want to achieve focus for your organization, alignment, accountability, speed, and visibility. But now how do we do this? The solution is building a clear plan, and I'm going to go into each of those in a moment. Building a clear plan, creating involvement, reporting and governance, insights and flexibility, and leveraging an effective culture and communication. So let's talk about the clear plan for a moment. Sorry if we go back for 1 second. If we talk about the clear plan for a moment here, how do you create focus in your strategy? It really starts by making choices and making a choice about how to create competitive advantage, a choice about choosing the right strategic framework, a choice about who do you involve to build your strategy. So this is really the key cornerstone, and we'll dive into this in a lot more detail actually in a short minute. And next up, alignment. Once you've created your clear plan, you created some focus, you want to ensure the right alignment. So we like to talk here about vertical and horizontal alignment. Horizontal alignment is all about breaking off these silos, creating collaboration, but it can fall short if you want to have more innovation and allow for innovation and creativity as well in your teams. That's when vertical alignment comes in. Vertical alignment is really everybody's working up towards one top goal, and you're empowering your people quite a bit through that. So the reality is it's usually a healthy combination of both, but we recommend to start out with one of them to really set up your organization for success. Then when we were looking at accountability, now you created your clear plan, you created alignment in your organization, and you want to make sure that everybody is accountable. And accountability really starts with clear roles and responsibilities, and then moving that into how does it look like when you are tracking your strategy on a regular basis. For example, the leadership team looks at it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, where the functional teams look at the strategy every month, and then maybe you have an all-hands meeting on a quarterly basis. The point here is to make it an organizational habit, living strategy in your organization every day. And then next one is about speed. So this is closely connected because we want to talk here as well about data and about how to transform your existing data into the right insights and reports that give you the platform to make decisions fast and effective. But also, how do you create those mechanisms to ensure that your organization is set up for innovation and moving in the right direction here with speed. And then last but not least, visibility and creating culture, an effective culture and communication. So probably one of my favorite ones. Oftentimes it's being said, and you might have heard that before, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's very much true. That's why we like to say as well, how can we create a culture where strategy is ingrained in it? So this is really where it comes down to people. People first, as always. But how do you create that really effective strategy that empowers your people and that helps your people to ultimately be successful with what they're doing? This is connected back to what I said in the beginning. Rolling out the strategy in a way that you're involving your people and that you're empowering them to be part of it. We have actually seen if the people are connected to your purpose, your higher reason for being, your why, they feel recognized, they feel connected, and they feel a part of it, incentivized even towards those bigger goals. There is a 79% success rate in achieving team goals. So that's pretty strong. And then another thing I'd like to say here is progress over perfection. Let's embrace that open feedback culture and feedback loop with a two-way communication. And that's also guaranteed if you're building an environment of trust with psychological safety and where people feel a sense of belonging. So ultimately, strategy should be everyone's business as usual. It's not one team or two teams, it's everybody's business as usual. And if everyone in the organization works on those things that impact strategy, the mindset can shift and it's going to be part of a bigger cultural change. So I know I've been running through this fairly quickly, but now let's move into one critical part to set you up for success for next year. But first, I want to just wrap this all up in this graph here with the 5 elements of an effective strategy. Wrapped around with is a system or a platform that will enable you to actually bring your strategies to life even more and have it all managed in one place. So with that, we're going to dive into that first part of how to create that really clear plan that is the key cornerstone to roll out effective strategies. And you'll get a lot of practical examples here from my colleague, Laura.
Thank you so much, Miriam. That was really insightful. I definitely feel that the hot topic of the moment is feeling a sense of belonging. So definitely on point, starting with a clear plan, and hopefully not too late for you all in setting up your plans for 2024. So let's start with one of the elements of effective strategy. Of course, we have a couple more. We'll be focusing on this today. And in the new year, you'll also be hearing from us in the future as well. But let's take a little bit of a step back in terms of what does it mean to roll out effective strategies across your organization? Well, for us, we see strategy in about 4 lenses. It may differ slightly in your business, but mostly we start with corporate strategy. That's your big, bold vision, usually a long-term, kind of company or corporate or organizational strategy. That typically is followed by a business unit strategy. It's Depends on, again, the size of your organization. But, this could look like something like a snacks division or the airports division, etc. And then you have your departmental strategies. So marketing, HR, typically run by the heads of department. And then beneath all of that are your operating strategies. So the strategies that your individual contributors and teams are operating within. And for us, the most successful strategies are when the gap between all of that is really small. So everybody on the ground, everybody who's contributing, all of your teams understand exactly where you're heading as an organization and what that corporate strategy is. So that when they're setting their strategies or they're working on their departmental strategies, they know exactly the direction to go in. So let's get into a bit of a practical example. You will hear us talk about plans a lot, and you'll hear us talk about a clear plan. What do we mean by a plan? So for us, we like to talk about it in the form of a house. The plan is really the frame. It's the frame of your home. It sets the structural boundaries for the remainder of the house to be built in. And a plan can be what we talked about before. So if you're coming in today and you're a CEO, you're probably thinking about setting your corporate strategy. If you're a team lead, you're probably thinking about setting your departmental or perhaps an initiative that you're running, or perhaps you're part of a team. You want to contribute more next year. You want to be more strategic. You want to contribute to the vision. You can think of setting your plan. So don't worry too much about what that all means. Just start with the end in mind. So from here, you're probably, if you haven't already, you can definitely think about that analysis you want to take into next year. So identifying your strengths and weaknesses of the business. There's lots going on in the world today. Maybe there are some external factors playing into how you'll meet your strategy next year. And hopefully you already have a vision, but as well, check out our blog if you need some help setting a vision. And you've probably already set your company values, but again, we can help you with that if need be. Then you want to think about the end in mind. And how we do that is actually starting with our focus areas. So I have some examples in here. Maybe your focus area is around financial growth, or build a high-performing culture, or be a best-in-class manufacturer, or maybe it's on sustainability. These focus areas are really the different rooms in your house. Really, they are the groupings or the categories for which you want your objectives to be in. So again, I said there's some examples here. You want them short, less than 6 words. Is usually a good focus area. And you don't want too many. Between 4 and 5 or even 6 maximum are really the sweet spot. Again, if you need some help, we have a great blog on really setting these, but I would say the most common ones are around growing the business, building a good team, building great processes, maybe a focus on sustainability. Whatever's important to you as a business, have those 4 or 5 key focus areas. And then inside those rooms of your house, you want to then start furnishing with the things that you care most about. So the things that you want to achieve. Fill it with meaningful outcomes. These are really what's going to drive the success of your strategy. Now, I'm going to give some practical examples here on the screen. So we talked about financial growth being one of our examples. And again, a loose recommendation would be have a maximum of 6 objectives per focus area. You want to be ambitious, but you definitely want to keep focused as well. So make sure they're worded very clearly. Now that you start to see it taking shape, and again, don't think too much about building the perfect plan. You want to get some ideas on the board and then move into execution very quickly. But what you want to do here is start to set your objectives with a verb. So maybe you want to achieve market share. Maybe you want to improve something or build or develop. Think of that verb that's going to anchor your objective. Your plan will look something like this. You'll have your 4 or 5 focus areas. You'll have your 3 to 6 objectives in each one. And then from there, you can start to build out your measures of success. So how will you know when you've achieved that market share? You'll be able to measure, obviously, the percentage impact. These are often known as your KPIs or your key results, your measures, your targets, whatever word you use internally at your business. It's that measure of success to help you know that you're heading in the right direction. And then, as well as that, you want to build your projects and your initiatives, maybe that those key milestones, your key programs of work. Again, whatever that terminology is in your world, it's the work, the tactics that will help you to achieve the outcomes. And these will have very clear timeframes. So perhaps something you want to deliver in Q1, something you want to deliver in 2024, or perhaps a longer range program that might take 2 to 3 years to come to fruition. And they will have owners, very clear owners who will deliver on those initiatives. Then you'll be able to measure your success and hopefully achieve those outcomes. From here, what I would recommend once you've built the objectives that you have, even if you have what you would deem as too many, once you have them listed together, you can then start to prioritize and maybe allocate resources effectively. To help with that, we do have a planning template. So in here, if you scan the QR code with your phone, or I think we'll drop a link as well in the chat, we can also, you can also download it as Excel. I think, yeah, here it is. Download the plan in Excel. This will help you to really start to build that structure and frame your plan in a way that's going to be really meaningful. So hopefully that's helpful. If you didn't manage to capture the download, I think we'll also send it as well. And in there, you will see those examples that I've built out too. So let's talk about what's next. I think on the poll tab, you can also find, I think on the downloads tab, you can see that plan template. So be sure to grab that and hopefully it will help. So we talked about just one element today around setting a clear plan. Of course, there's a few other things to think about as you head into the new year. How do you involve your teams in planning? Definitely share that template, get everybody involved, be transparent with the strategies you're building. And yeah, don't be too hard on yourself if the plan is not looking quite right, or if those objectives seem too wordy. That's something you can iterate over time. And of course, how you'll report on the effectiveness of your strategy. Hopefully, when you get back in the new year, you'll get into a good cadence of execution. You'll be reporting and updating your strategy often. It won't be a PowerPoint left on the shelf. Hopefully, that's why you're here today. And even if you just focus on one of these elements, I'll guarantee you will be more effective in rolling out your strategies next year. But I do have a magic solution. Hopefully, you'll stick around and let me show you Cascade. Cascade is the system that can support all of this. I want to show you this just for the next couple of minutes because we believe that Cascade not only helps you to visualize your strategy better, but it also helps to get your team to focus on what really matters and help you hit those all-important goals next year. So I'm going to flip my screen over to Cascade briefly and show you some of what I think are the most important elements of the platform, and talks definitely to what we've covered today. So let's imagine for a moment you've rolled out Cascade across your organization. This is where you're going to be able to visualize each of those plans. So again, if you were thinking earlier, I don't know what plan I would have or how this would work for my business, this is an example of what your platform could look like. You've got all of the different plans and departments of your business in one place, and we can zoom in and see, how is the health of this plan going? How aligned are these plans to the corporate strategy? Are my teams actually working on the right things? Or do we maybe have a drop in alignment over here? Secondly, we talked about building plans. I want to show you how this comes to life in the platform. We mentioned a moment ago about focus areas, the importance of getting these objectives built in here. It's super easy to build your plans in Cascade, much easier than the Excel template, which of course is the low friction option, but so easy to build out those objectives. You just simply type them in, you assign them and give them a date, and away you go into execution mode. Now, when we're thinking about execution, we have an amazing feature called execution, obviously. And this is where your teams will actually execute their goals. So all of a sudden they get visibility into what I need to do today, when it needs to be due by, what my last update was, so how I'm actually progressing, and then can actually drive and give that monthly health check, which today probably lives in email, Teams, maybe Excel, maybe Microsoft Projects, maybe PowerPoint. Maybe you're really grappling with trying to understand how your strategies are performing. And this helps to anchor that update for all of your team. It gives them a place for them to insert a video, to tag their colleagues, to celebrate achievements, to drop a link with their piece of work that they've completed, but also ask for help if they're not on track. So this really drives a very quick view of providing updates and progress all in one place. You've got teams who can provide the successes, the blockers, what's next, and you no longer need to chase for updates. But then where do those updates go? Well, we have a feature called reports. So you would build a report when you first come on board with us, and then all of those updates, all of the progress of your metrics, and those summaries of what's happening across the teams will all live in here. You can add visuals, you can add charts, you can also bring in your key metrics that you care about and see the progress all in one place. You can then drill by person. Maybe Emily here, she's got a few things behind. Let's understand why. Or maybe, Philip over here, he's got too many objectives that he's working on. How can we help him unblock that work? And lastly, the best bit is you can share this instantly with anyone in the business or even externally to give them that snapshot. So that's it from me. If you want to learn more about how Cascade can help, then we are here. We'd love to give you a demo of the platform. We are going to be sticking around a little while doing Q&A here, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And then, of course, we have networking tables as well. So after this, we will drop over to there. We'll hear your top questions and we can continue the conversation with members of the Cascade team. So whilst you pop those questions in, we will stick around and answer them for you. As I said, book a demo with us if you want. I think the link will pop up here any minute now. But yeah, let's hear what you think. And also, I would love to go back to the poll and see how confident you all were on rolling out your strategy. Miriam, are you back with us? Yes, you're here.
I'm back.
All right, let's do some questions then. So the first one we have is it difficult to communicate the feasibility of achieving goals when a strategy has been dictated rather than physically outlined? What are your suggestions about creating a plan as a mid-level leader? Ooh, great question. Miriam, do you want to answer this one?
I can give it a try. Yeah, for sure. So I would probably always say, out of my experience, even as a mid-level manager or leader, you can create your plan to ensure that your team has objectives and something to connect them all together. Is it ideal, the situation that you're outlining here? Probably not, but we're not living in the perfect world. So we have to make do with what we have. I always believe that as leaders, we are in the position to do the best what we can for our team and the teams around us, and maybe be a positive influence for everybody else. That's what I would say here. Laura, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would love to add something here. I've been a mid-level leader a couple of times, and the thing that I think I've always gone back to is make sure you have visibility of the strategy that's been dictated at that corporate or more strategic level. If you don't know where to find it, get a copy. And if it doesn't exist, then help build it as well. If you can anchor everything that you're building in your team as a mid-level leader around what the company care about and where the vision is heading, you'll be starting off in a much better place. And, even if you don't want to create your own focus areas, adopt the corporate ones, adopt those focus areas and anchor your initiatives around that. And also get the buy-in from your team. Everyone always thinks the leaders know everything that there is to know, and you don't. I remember thinking, when I'm a leader, I'm going to have all of the answers, but the reality is you don't. And so you need to get that from your team as well and help them drive the input as well. So hopefully that helps with that. Okay, we have the poll popped up here. Let's see what the results are. So, okay, most of you or half of you picked moderately confident. I can see that dropping a little bit. Oh, it's increasing now. And I would say not a lot of people selected not confident at all, which is good. Hopefully you are starting off on a good foot. But only 3% of you picked extremely confident, which I guess is why you're here today. Yeah, curious to hear your thoughts on whether you feel a bit more confident now with what we've talked about today. If there are any topics that you, are real sticklers that it would make you more confident, we would love to hear that. And maybe we'll do an event on that in the future. Miriam, any thoughts on the poll results?
I think it's a great reflection and definitely shows why we're here today. So, yeah.
There's a great question here. For people who opt for Cascade, do we get any hand-holding? Yes, is the answer to that. We have a couple of packages, but essentially we will partner with you to make sure Cascade is going to be adopted for success. We don't do a, like a version where we leave you basically to interpret that yourself. So yeah, we have a couple of packages. Check out the pricing page on our website and see how we do that as well. What else do we have? How do you manage the change of strategy in the system? Do you keep old focus areas and reports? Yeah, this is a great question, actually. And Miriam, I'd be keen on your thoughts around how you redo strategies year on year or quarter on quarter. For me, there's a couple of elements that we take when changing the strategy in the system. If the old focus areas are relevant, and quite often they stay relevant for a few years, then yeah, you can keep them in there. You can replace them. You can create new ones. You can, archive some data so that you can report on the past if you want. But you can also, filter things out that don't make sense anymore. Miriam, have you got any thoughts on how you would do that year-on-year planning?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like what's not relevant anymore, you would eventually filter that out, and you should stay up to date to honestly, at the end of the day, the system might even show you when you're going on with tracking, it might give you an indication to reevaluate what is actually relevant and what is not. I think that's also an important point to consider, coming back to the point of regular tracking and regularly looking at your strategy, just to understand what is still relevant and what is not, and then to make a choice what to drop or what to maybe add in. That's what I would add here, beyond the system as well. What's the difference? Go ahead. Yeah. So, what is the difference between this and the OKR framework? This is probably related to what you presented, Laura. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, definitely. So, not much difference. What I would say for me, I see OKRs as more of the mindset. Like OKRs are traditionally a quarterly mechanism of making sure you have an objective and a key result. What I've seen working with a number of organizations that adopt the OKR framework is it can be quite confusing to adopt a number of different frameworks all at the same time. So I always say to really drive simplicity for your organization is to make sure that teams can create objectives, which may be more of that annual, what's the big ticket item we want to achieve, creating a key result. So how they're going to measure success. That's like the traditional OKR. But then inside that, you still want your tactics. You still want to be able to set out how you're going to achieve them. And then I would adopt reviewing them on a quarterly basis. So for me, I would set my team's OKRs as being what do we want to achieve in Q1, but the big picture is this for the year. So it's similar, but it's a little bit of a different mindset, if that makes sense. Miriam, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think the only thing I would add when I was working with OKRs, the great thing is that you can definitely connect it, since it is the 90-day plans, you can connect it back to your incentive system or whatever you have set up here as an incentivized goals. And that can help to just keep things moving nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
What do we have next? We have so many different things at play: goals, outcome frameworks, focus areas, team outcomes, and we're halfway through the strategy. Is it better to start again or to continue preserving through? Well, I guess I would say, so it sounds like there has been some work done. I'm sure there is probably something in that work that can also be preserved, but sometimes it is good to do a reset and quickly ask some bigger questions again of the why and the what and the how. Um, I wouldn't completely scratch it and throw it away. I would always use some of it. There has been a reason why you've been already doing what you're doing, and there must be some value in it as well. But looks like a really individual situation. What would you say, Laura?
I would say two things come to mind. One would be as you're heading for the new year, so you have probably about 6 months till the new cycle. Is think about how you could simplify the frameworks in the future. So could we just adopt focus areas? Could we really simplify the terminology that we use and anchor everybody around the same thing? But the second thing that maybe you could do more in the short term is really doing a bit of a prioritization exercise and saying, for the next 6 months, if we are focusing on all of this, are we going to get it all done? Or is it better to just say now, we're not going to get these 3 things done. So we're actually going to take them out of our focus because it's creating too much noise and chaos. So that's another like kind of short-term tactic potentially that you could do. But yeah, I would always say, I don't ever see starting again as the solution. Hopefully that helps. I can take this one as well, Miriam, if you want. How does Cascade integrate with an external data source, databases, etc., to help track KPIs? So we have lots of integrations available. We always recommend for KPIs, metrics, anything that is tracked in like a Salesforce or Snowflake or even Excel, if you're not super data mature, we can integrate, or we should integrate with those platforms because that data is being tracked somewhere. And we bring that into Cascade as that external view, and then you layer on the context to your strategy. For example, the contextual update, like what happened, where people are getting stuck, what help they need, but then you can see how those KPIs are performing. So yeah, depends what systems you're using, but if they're fairly modern, they have an API, then we can usually integrate. Want to take this, Miriam?
What do we have here? Yeah, I've encountered occasional challenges in effectively cascading involvement throughout all levels. How can we ensure active participation from teams, particularly those primarily engaged in the day-to-day business operations, driving P&L? Absolutely. Cascading down the strategy effectively is the biggest challenge, as we've just learned, and engaging those teams as well. What I have seen working in the past is definitely if teams, even in the day-to-day or operations, if they see the connection to what they are doing back to the bigger picture, back to what is the focus the business is going with, if that connection can be made clear and transparent and be broken down to individual goals, that is usually what I've seen, or what we've seen as well, work the best. It's all about creating those connections, but also then showing them transparently and making sure that everybody understands what's in it for them, right? Like, how does their work contribute to the bigger picture? Anything else I'm missing here, Laura?
No, I think you hit that quite well. I would say the most successful way is when you have a little bit of top down and a little bit of bottom up, and you're meeting somewhere in the middle. It depends on the type of organization that you are, and that how active people are in participating. But the biggest theme that I hear lately is like, what's in it for me? And that's different at different layers of the organization. And I think if you can get that right, make people know what's in it for them and why it's important. And it's not just another strategy day or another thing I have to add to my list. Then hopefully that helps. All right, I think we're done with questions. So we do, if you want to pop out of this session, I think if you click back in the top left, or I think it might pop in the top right as well, we do have some networking tables. So members from the Cascade team and ourselves as well will be sticking around for 10 or 15 minutes. And then as I also mentioned, if you want to book a demo with us, if you want to even learn how myself and Miriam support you on this journey through our services team, we can also have a chat about that. But yeah, thank you all so much. Hopefully this helps, and we'll see you in the new year, if not on the network tables. Thank you all. Have a good day or evening. Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, everybody.